I'm Chief Tom Hackney, Chief of Detective with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. We'll talk about the events that happened yesterday, May 31st. At around 11 o'clock, officers from the Patrol Division were dispatched to the Cleveland Armed Apartments, 5020 Cleveland Road. Actually, they were dispatched to the call of shots being fired with unknown injuries. Several of the 911 callers gave not only the suspect description, his clothing description, but also a very accurate description of the car that the suspect had fled in. While officers were en route to that call, at 45th and Avenue B, they observed a vehicle which matched the description of the suspect vehicle which had been described by the 911 callers. The initial officer waited just a few seconds for a backup to arrive, and they made an attempt to conduct a traffic stop on the car. The driver of that car did not stop for them, and the vehicle pursuit was initiated. That vehicle pursuit landed them just a couple blocks to Paris Avenue and Morehouse Road. The two officers who were in the vehicle pursuit saw the suspect exit. His clothing description was that of the description given on the 911 call, and they saw a handgun in the suspect's waistband. Those two officers engaged in a foot pursuit of the male who exited the car. That foot pursuit went a couple blocks as well to the 5748 Avenue B, which is a converted residence. It is now the business of community barbershop. They saw the suspect then go behind that business of the community barbershop. The officers called for additional officers who were arriving pretty much at the same time. They established a perimeter around there and called for a canine unit to arrive. They determined from looking at the business that the suspect had crawled into the crawl space around the back of the business and underneath the business as well. The canine officer deployed his canine service dog, actually deployed him twice underneath the residence or underneath the business. Neither of those deployments resulted in the suspect coming out. The canine officer then looked underneath the crawl space and was able to see the suspect, again matching the clothing description of the suspect who had been not only seen from the shooting call at 5020 Cleveland Road, but as well as the suspect who they engaged in the foot pursuit in and had last seen armed underneath the house or underneath the business. The canine officer gave repeated instructions for that suspect to not only show his hands, but to comply and come from underneath the business. The suspect not only refused orders from the canine officer, but he would curse back at the canine officer each one of the times. We have at least 7 times from other officers at the scene reports that he instructed him to comply. Keep in mind that the last report that the officers had on the scene was that the suspect was armed. The pursuit was initiated within 3 minutes, actually, of the call being dispatched, of a shots fired call. So these officers were going under the premise that this suspect is armed, seen by 2 other officers with a handgun in his waistband. The canine officer looking under the house saw the suspect reach towards his waistband. The canine officer discharged his firearm 5 times. The suspect was shot in the torso, the arm, as well as in the pinky toe. The suspect then came to the opening of the crawl space, was removed, and CPR started by the officers at the scene. Jacksonville Fire Rescue was called, and the suspect was announced dead at the scene. As per our policy in these type of cases, the officer was placed on administrative leave. After the officers had arrived, there was a citizen on the foot pursuit route who pointed out a handgun. Believe that to be the handgun that was dropped by the suspect. The description of the handgun, as well as its .45 caliber, matches the description of the gun and the shell casing seen and recovered at 5020 Cleveland Road. Keep in mind, the officers knew at the time the suspect was armed, and it wasn't until after the shooting incident that the handgun was actually found at the route of the pursuit. The suspect is identified by us as 32-year-old black male Thomas McMullen, with the last known address of 2100 block of Palafox Street in Jacksonville. The officer is a 21-year veteran, T.E. Stafford. The suspect has an extensive criminal record, including a previous arrest from 1993 murder. I'll give you a little bit of the history of the call from 5020 Cleveland Road and working backwards what led up to the pursuit at that time. The suspect and his girlfriend were actually out. The girlfriend lives in the apartment complex at 5020 Cleveland. the girlfriend was called by one of her neighbors who told her that there was a possible burglary at her apartment. They returned from where they were to the apartment complex. The neighbor told the girlfriend that the suspects were possibly known to the girlfriend. She went out into the apartment complex to try to find these suspects. The suspect had separated then from his girlfriend. He went and got in the car that they had gone to use earlier in the day. The suspect found the girlfriend talking to what he believed to be the suspects from the burglary. He exited the car armed with the same .45 caliber handgun, got out and shot multiple times towards the area of the persons that he believed to be the burglary suspects. He did not hit anyone in that case. The girlfriend went to move the car. The car had been left at the entrance to the complex. So she went to move the car. As she got in the car, the suspect then jumped in the passenger seat. He told her to drive, and it was within less than minutes from there that the pursuit initiated. I can answer any questions that anybody might have about any of these facts that we did.
Girlfriend arrested, not arrested?
The girlfriend was detained. She was interviewed, was cooperative, no charges were placed on her.
And ballpark distance from where the gun was found and where the suspect was located?
It's within maybe 50 feet of the car, and again, this was a 2-block foot pursuit from where the car was to where the shooting occurred.
Good, thank you.
But it appears he dropped or lost the gun after he got in the car and took off on foot, correct?
Yes, it would have been after he exited the car, because it was as he was exiting the car that the 2 officers engaged in the vehicle pursuit saw him get out of the car with the gun in his waistband. So it's an assumption, but somewhere as he's running it either was thrown by him or dropped out of his waistband.
Any further information about Philip Rady? Victim number 2. I'm sorry, wrong sheet.
So no.
Wrong sheet.
Any other questions?
Any other pertinent questions?
Any other questions?
All right. Thank
Okay.
you for your cooperation.
21-year vet, by the way?
21 years.
T,
T period, E period, and Stafford.
S-T-A.
FFORD.
Okay,
FFORD.
Okay,